some of those guys like Jones and Douglas go to other teams and all of a sudden start playing a little bit better.
Crabbs and Benjamin Solak of the Draft Network, the Mid-Atlantic guys here at TDN on the staff. And as such, Ben, we are cursed every week to watch the least watchable football team in the NFL this season, the Philadelphia Eagles. And this was a team that had a fair amount of expectations coming into the season, obviously not that far removed from a Super Bowl win, brought everybody back as far as general manager and head coach and quarterback, and an older team, but a team that hence was expected to be in a win-now window and is anything but. So,
yeah, it's funny because, like, you thought that, like, were they a competing team? Were they not? Like, in the media, it was kind of a debate. They clearly thought they were, right? And that's what you say, older and expensive. Like, they were in, and it has not gone well.
So that's, the big thing about how Howie Roseman has kind of handled this organization over the past couple of years is it's been kind of fearless with deferring guaranteed money and trying to several years of win now windows, and we'll worry about the financial situation later. Well, the financial situation is one of the things that has caught up to Philadelphia, and that their approach to building a team has really prevented them from retaining young talent, and they're trying to plug holes in the roster to win now. So how much of that factor in your eye, in your opinion, was one of the variables that has caused this kind of disastrous season for Philadelphia this year?
Yeah, I think that, as the quarterback goes, so all things go, and figuring out the quarterback's been tough. But when you take a step back and you say, okay, obviously the quarterback is unique, but let's look at this roster as a whole. They have not drafted or developed young talent in a couple of years. And when you don't do that, it doesn't really matter what else you can do. Eventually, the piper comes, you got to pay him. Right, but as Louis Riddick brought up on the Monday Night Football broadcast when they played the Seahawks, they've drafted one Pro Bowler since 2013, and that Pro Bowler was Wentz. And he's not playing like a Pro Bowler much anymore. They were lauded for, a pretty good deal, moving some players to get those picks and then getting that Wentz deal. And it wasn't a huge mortgage of the future. They were able to make more first-round draft picks, and they kept some of their day two draft picks. But those players simply haven't panned out. And not only do you have a failure in talent acquisition and identifying good talent and bringing it in, drafting a guy like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the second round, drafting Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas in the second and third round. But you also have a development failure, because then, and you start asking the question of kind of what's happening in Philadelphia in both the front office and in the positional coaching rooms, such that all of these young players are coming in and are unsuccessful. You pair that drafting failure with Roseman's orientation on, I've got a young quarterback who's clearly successful. I've got a Super Bowl winning head coach. I'm going to try to win as many games in this window as possible. And he's talked about this. This isn't us reading into. Roseman has said, I have a winning window. I attack a winning window. And then when I need to reset, I reset. And that's not inherently a bad approach. Like, when you have an opportunity, you should sell out for the opportunity. If it doesn't work, what's the point of winning 6 games instead of 3 games? What's the point of going to the wild card round for 3 years instead of the championship for 1? Of course, the Eagles did end up going for the wild card round for 3 straight years, but that doesn't matter. That approach of diving into the window is appropriate. However, when you don't have the young talent to buttress it, you end up restructuring these deals and opening up cap space and signing all these free agents and bringing in all these older players. And when those gambles don't work, when those dice rolls don't work, as they sometimes do, you do not have the safety net and you cater, right? And that's why when Mike Wallace gets hurt and Alshon Jeffrey gets hurt and Deshaun Jackson gets hurt, there's nobody at wide receiver to solve the problem. That's why when Ronald Darby starts to struggle at corner, there are no players behind him to solve the issue. So it's two-pronged, right? We're going to invest in these veterans and we're going to try to win now with proven players. They fall through. Okay, well, let's turn to our young guys to develop. Oh, wait, we didn't get any of those either. And that's how you're left with bare covers on the roster.
Well, and let me ask you this too, because Howie's been here in different title roles for a decade now as general manager, the Chip Kelly era side in which, there was a different power dynamic within the Eagles front office. So we've seen Howie kind of attack how he runs a team to this degree before. This is, cyclical, like he talks about. When I need to reset, I reset. What should Eagles fans expect from here? Obviously, it seems like Jeffrey Lurie's at the end of his leash,
Right.
where he looked like he wanted to smack somebody on the TV when they put him on the broadcast on Monday Night Football, and it was a huge deal that he skipped the game prior
Yeah.
in Philadelphia. I mean, that was all we heard on sports talk radio in the Philadelphia area. So, what is the expectation from Lurie to Roseman? And then based on what you, as somebody who is as close to Philadelphia, the team, as you have been, what should the expectation be for Roseman this offseason and how this progresses as they look to take the reset, to use Roseman's own word?
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if Roseman holds the job. Right now, when you look at Roseman, Peterson, and you can even like kind of put Jim Schwartz in there because Schwartz is their defensive coordinator, has like a lot of really unprecedented power, both in personnel and just in his unit in general. Roseman's probably the closest to the chopping block. I think Peterson's the most likely to kind of get another year to see what he can do because of the failures of talent acquisition like we've talked about. So number one thing is they may just simply say, Roseman is simply not brought in enough talent. Fundamentally, when you talk about general manager, identifying windows, trade opportunities, managing a roster, all that, the base thing you got to do is acquire talent. Got to get talent in the building, and that's what Roseman has struggled with. And so there's going to be that conversation. It's worth noting that Joe Douglas was brought in to be that talent acquisition part in the last few years. He leaves for the Jets. He has a pretty good draft as first year gone, in case anyone's wondering. And Andy Weidel, who is his number 2, kind of steps up into that role. And Weidel's been associated with a lot of good talent evaluators, but he's rather unmeasured. And so if the Eagles even want to keep Roseman around, they don't necessarily have that guy in the front office they can point to and say, this is going to be our primary go-to guy on talent. He's going to start to take the reins in the draft room, and Roseman's going to take more of a backseat cap role like he had in previous years. They don't necessarily have that guy in the building. So your first step is figuring out what the new structure is. You should expect at least some sort of a change, even if it's minor. Roseman has survived more than his fair share of power struggles in his day in Philadelphia. So it's not a safe bet to say that he's going to get removed even after the way the season has gone. And then, the expectation stepping forward, this is long-term. This is not, we're going to wipe this away with one hand. Firstly, you have the Carson Wentz deal to which you are tied. So you're going to have the same quarterback in the building for the next couple of years, barring an unbelievable, unprecedented restructure on a trade, which I don't see how any team would want to do that with how Wentz is playing. You're stuck with that player. Roseman, the way that he works with voided years and prorated money and restructures, is going to be paying guys like Jason Kelsey and Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Brooks to potentially not be on the team, or to be cut, to potentially not be high-impact players at very, very high figures through 2021 and into 2022 with the reduced cap ceilings that are expected because of the COVID-adjusted years and the 4-year bargain that the Players Association had with the NFL. You don't have cap space already. And now you're going to be, paying some credit card debts, as it were, with the teams you put together a couple of years ago. So the Eagles aren't going to be able to acquire any big free agents, and they're going to have big ticket guys who they have to cut just to get under the cap ceiling. This team's going to get worse before it gets better. It's got a decent amount of draft picks in 2021, but for example, they don't have a 4th rounder because they traded for Jannard Avery on the trade deadline 2 years ago, and he hasn't taken a defensive snap in the last 3 weeks. So that's kind of where you are as a team. Is you spend a lot of future capital to make it better now, and it's not better now. So you're going to have to sit, wait, and kind of slough through the bed that you made for yourself here. 2021 is going to be a hard reset, a lot of young players, a lot of struggles. If this team's going to start to have the arrow pointing up, it'll be 2022 at the earliest.